In the early morning of April 15, 1912, the supposedly unsinkable ship Titanic clashed with an iceberg which created a hole in the bottom of the ship which then rapidly started to fill with water. The Titanic started to sink, which sent everybody on board the ship into a panic. People were successful in escaping the tragedy. However, the disaster still ended up killing over 1,500 people. Today, we will be exploring 7 eerie facts about the Titanic. After the Titanic had sunk, the first newspaper to hear about and document the event was the Daily Mail. Naturally, because of how recent the event was, it meant that not a lot of the information put out was proven to be true. This caused the Daily Mail to make a terrible mistake in their writing. In the paper, they wrote that no lives were lost in the sinking of the Titanic. Of course, this made many of the family members of the people on board the Titanic relieved that their relative had survived, when in fact over 1,500 people had died in the sinking that night. Because the owners believed that the Titanic was extremely strong, they only stocked 18 lifeboats with the ship. Each lifeboat had a capacity of 65 people, which would mean that only 1,170 people on the ship could use the lifeboats. That number is very small when you know that over 2,000 people were on board the Titanic at the time. Not only that, some of the lifeboats weren't being used for their full capacity. One of the lifeboats that was sent off had only 27 people on it. That meant that only 42% of the lifeboat's capacity was used. Many more lives could have been saved if it weren't for the poor management of lifeboats. There was only one Japanese man on the Titanic at the time. His name was Masabumi Hosono. He boarded the Titanic with the intent of traveling back to Japan after a business trip. When the Titanic began to sink, he thought that he would die, so he wrote a letter to his wife to say his goodbye. However, there was an open slot on one of the lifeboats, which meant that he could escape the tragedy. When he got back to Japan after surviving the sinking, he was praised by others. But soon many Japanese people started to turn their back on him because they thought that the reason he survived was because he was weak and only thought about himself. This backlash ended up making him lose his job and his reputation. Masabumi passed away in 1939 while still getting hated by many people in Japan. Because of the strong reputation of the Titanic, no one considered the possibility of the ship sinking. However, in 1898, 14 years before the Titanic disaster, a man named Morgan Robertson wrote a book called The Wreck of the Titan. In this book, he spoke about a ship called the Titan, which crashes into an iceberg in April and kills many people due to a shortage of lifeboats. This book is very eerily similar to the wreck of the Titanic, down to the name, the reason it killed people, and even the month in which it sank. Many people questioned Morgan if he was a time traveler who was on the Titanic. However, he denied these claims and said it was just an amazing coincidence. People usually believe that when the Titanic fully sank, the people left in the water died from drowning. However, one of the main causes of death for the people in the water was actually due to how cold the water was. That night the temperatures dropped severely, which caused the water temperature to drop to 28 degrees Fahrenheit, or -2 degrees Celsius. That temperature is close to saltwater freezing temperature. Of course, this caused many people to freeze to death while in the water. However, some people were able to survive the freezing ocean water, such as Chief Baker, who survived long enough to be pulled into a boat due to all of the alcohol that he had drank, which helped insulate him from the extreme cold. In 1871, a man named Raymond R. Gevinier was on board a ship called America. Tragedy struck the ship when a boiler became too pressurized and started a huge fire. This caused the boat to promptly sink. Raymond was lucky as he was able to escape the sinking of the ship. Unfortunately, 40 years later, Raymond booked a ticket for the Titanic even though he had PTSD from the last sinking tragedy. As you know, the Titanic then hit an iceberg and began to sink just like the ship that Raymond was on 40 years earlier. Raymond was unable to survive the sinking of the Titanic. While the Titanic was sinking, there was a phenomenon nicknamed the Scream of the Titanic. As the Titanic sank into the cold ocean, survivors heard utterly terrifying screams and cries coming from the water. People believed these sounds were the last moments of those who died in the freezing sea. It's frightening to think of what the people experienced as they were in the cold, dark ocean awaiting their potential fate. The haunting screams were a sad reminder of the tragedy and the many lives lost in the Titanic disaster.
We really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching and we hope to see you again sometime.